Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to yet another edition of a Family Affair initiative. Today, we have with us Meena Iyer. I'm so delighted to have her with us. She's a trained Reiki master, she's a psychologist, she's also a hypnotherapist and a motivational trainer, and she dons many other hats. Welcome, Meena. Thank you so much for taking our time to be here.
Hi, Richa. It's lovely to be here.
So, Meena, let's start with a brief introduction about yourself. You are so qualified and you're doing such diverse things. So, little about you to let our viewers know.
Yeah, so hi, everyone. My name is Meena Iyer. I currently live in the city of Bangalore, but I've spent a lot of time in Delhi NCR. So, when I started out deciding what to do with my life, I actually studied journalism and mass comm. And then I went to work in actually in ad sales with Times of India. I would contribute, I would write now and then, but mostly it was sales. And
That's how
of
we
course, after
met long back.
yes, yes. And then, of course, I moved to TV and then, a career in selling airtime and doing events, working with these larger than life brands like HBO, Cartoon Network. And then, actually, in 2011, I made a complete transition. And I very honestly say that it were my personal challenges that took me to the whole world of self help and spirituality and therapy and all of that. And having done that, I realized that the best way to contribute to this would be by acquiring whatever qualifications it took. So I did my post graduation in counseling psychology. I'm also a certified clinical hypnotherapist. I studied Reiki and
Wow.
a whole bunch of things. I'm certified in neuro linguistic programming. I've done a good bit of work with transactional analysis. And now I've kind of brought it all together. I work one on one as well as with groups of people through my workshops.
Wow. Wow, Meena, I'm now like super impressed. You've been, continuously, upgrading yourself, learning. And, the most noble part is helping so many people, deal with a lot of issues in their lives. So I wanted to start with, what is inner child healing? That is a topic of discussion today. So, it's a very intriguing term. So can you let us know more? What does it mean?
So the inner child is that part of us which still behaves and emotes like a child. So it's an emotional, construct. For instance, all of us have gone through situations where we have felt emotions like fear or like anger, you know. And after the event, we've blamed ourselves, saying, "How come? What happened to me? How come I turned into a little weeping baby? Or I started trembling like a little child?" So that part of us, which still goes back to childhood, to face, to deal with what is happening in the here and now when we are actually adults, is what the inner child is. And therefore, when we say inner child healing, we are validating the concerns, the emotions that the inner child has, so that that child can be brought up to speed with the adult that we are today in the here and now.
So, why do we need to look at our inner child? Like, why is it important to tap into this facet?
Most of us, we all have situations in our life where we wonder, why did I behave like this? Why does this kind of person really trigger me, or brings out the worst in me? And that's always an afterthought. While we are in the situation, we find that there's a part of us that, like I said, becomes like a little child, like a spontaneous, bundle of emotions. So, why we need to look at inner child, and we're going to talk more about the content of the program, is to look very carefully as to how our childhood really went, because that's got all the secrets. That's where we realize why we got shaped this way, how our behavior patterns, our attitudes, our preferences, our fears. Even I can say some people feel terrorized, let's say, by taking a flight. And it's all coming from childhood,
Okay.
by an actual experience or something that we heard, a prominent adult, an elder in our life say, and then we just took it on and made it our own belief. So that is why it's important to look at what our childhood looks like and how we slowly develop through this entire journey.
So, Amina, this is a very important part. I think most of us are not even aware that this is a kind of a, facet or a, situation where one needs to, take a stock of things so that it will help us, in our present, because what happened in the past is going to shape our present and our future. So I think it's
Absolutely.
imperative to, tap into this and see what are the issues there. So when did you
Mhm.
start conducting these workshops?
So we did the first workshop in 2019 May, and at that time we had the luxury. Those were the pre-COVID years. We had the luxury of getting everybody to a nice resort, to get the whole group to first break the ice, bond, come in on a Thursday, and then the actual program would begin on Friday. So we started in 2019, and then in 2020, once the lockdown started, I actually had a face-to-face program scheduled in Gurgaon, but then I changed everything to online. And
Okay.
in the online format, of course, I've done groups of people, and there are still, Richa, people that I have never met face to face in life, and they've done the program with me. And I also want to add that those who do this program with me are like they're like connected to me for good. So we meet once a week, and because once you do a program like this, sometimes people ask me, "Is it just a feel good, tin din ka program, and then you forget it all?" In the beginning, it's all enthusiastic, but then what happens? But my every week meeting is to reinforce what we learn in the workshop. Also, when we practice the principles we learned in the workshops, life is going to explode around us. The people in our life are going to say, okay, so what's happened to her? Now, how come she's become assertive? How come she started, drawing boundaries? How come she finally knows what she wants, or he knows what he wants? So when people around us start reacting to sort of the new ways of being that we've transformed into, that's when the support is needed. So like I said, 2019 we did Goa, Kasoli. We went to Jim Corbett in Jan of 2020, and then of course the lockdowns. And now I've begun doing the face to face workshops again. We've done two
Wow.
workshops in Gurgaon this year, and there's another one coming up this month end. So I'm really looking forward to
Oh,
that.
wow, that's so exciting. Viewers, guys, friends, please note, if you really want to, get into this and, learn and, course correct and, delve into the past and see what is, creating those impediments. I think this is the time to, reach out to Meena. So, Meena, tell me, what do you do in these workshops? What happens in them?
Okay. So I'll say a little bit about what this curriculum is all about, right? Um, I have actually I have drawn from the work of many psychotherapists, psychologists, researchers, brain researchers, and all the work that's been done in the area of childhood development. What happens to a person in the stages of, childhood that they go through? So we learn about these stages. For instance, the stage that is the first stage, which is infancy, and then toddlerhood, and then the preschool years, then the school years, um, and then, of course, adolescence. So I actually take the entire group through these years, that is from 0 to 26, understanding what are the normal developmental needs of a child in that stage. So when the child is developing, what does he or she need, and in what ways could either some of these needs have got missed, or unknowingly, inadvertently, the adults in that child's life could have ended up wounding or damaging the child's psyche.
Okay. Yeah, I think
uh,
that's really important. We don't realize
right,
it.
like absolutely. Like a lot of children have gone through things like, when the younger sibling is born, they feel distanced, or they feel ignored, they feel neglected. Okay. I'm the eldest too. And also, then, there are comparisons, and there is all kinds of pressure to perform. Also, the impact of what the adults in the household are going through. So if it's a very busy father, an absent father, or a working mother who has a very taxing stressed out life, and she brings some of that stress home, all of that will impact. So really we are talking about uh, you know Errors, I want to, say that, though it sounds very brutal, errors that parents make, of course unconsciously. No parent wants to harm their child, but these are errors of omission and commission. They've missed out on some of the things they need to do, and they have they've taken some active steps which have harmed the child. And whichever stage we've gone through the harm, it shows up in different ways. So, for example, the most common problems, and I think some of these have got really, amplified in the time of COVID, when people had to stay at home, they couldn't go to work, and they were face to face with, people living in the house. Some of these problems are problems in significant relationships, or people who use, let's say, alcohol or drugs or problem eating as a coping mechanism to their emotional issues. So all of these issues actually have their roots in childhood. There are unaddressed childhood traumas that then the person, you know like we say, girte parte, like somehow, by hit and trial, they stumble on ways to cope with these problems. For someone it could be alcohol, for someone it could be a string of relationships, for someone it could be, maybe smoking, or even gambling, right, or problem eating, or like starving yourself, like disorders like anorexia, for instance. So, in the program, like I said, we go through every stage. I have scripted the guided visualizations, which are like meditations, which take you to a place, a very calm, tranquil place, to kind of remember what that particular stage of your childhood was, whether it's infancy or toddlerhood. And when you go there, you remember and you respond to those, verbal cues which I give, saying, "How are you feeling now? You're a little nervous. You're on the beach. Who's the person standing next to you?" Right? And once they come out of these meditations, then we do a good bit of introspection, and what I call letter writing, where the adult me writes to the child me, the child me writes back to the adult me, and so we integrate these parts of our personality.
Oh, wow. So, I had to add to that, when I was younger, I was a big rebel. So, firstly,
Mhm.
your first point about the elder sibling feeling left out, I think we all go through that jealousy, but I think my parents handled it very well. In my case, I think it was the other way around. My younger brother always felt that he's one who's neglected and is the family of the girl child. So his slogan used to be different, ki, give me some attention
Absolutely.
as well. I think it was by virtue that they wanted both of us to feel equals. So but then
Yeah.
over time I think it all fell in place. Also, I had a very similar remark to make. I know of someone who were not doing very well when we were kids, but their mother was like a solid fort. And
Mhm.
like when we are growing up, as you said, there's a lot of comparisons, and
Yes.
people a lot of times parents don't realize, but they're doing undue harm by comparing and by being sarcastic or saying things which are negative by nature. But in those cases, I have seen, because of that particular auntie's fortitude and her willpower, both the kids ended up doing so well that we could have never imagined. So I think it's about encouragement and also positive parenting. And it's not that any parent is wrong. I think it's all about being little mindful. So coming back to the
Absolutely.
workshop,
I
sorry.
wanted to add, Richa, it's not just parents, for some of us, our teachers, our elder sibling, or even cousins in the family, because, earlier people used to be together all the time, right? So we could have a significant adult who has maybe mentored us and given us that strength. We could also have had experiences of, extreme difficulty. Like I hear of a lot of bullying, like in college, you
Yeah,
call it ragging, and there's a lot of bullying which has happened. Anybody who is today in their 40s or 50s, and has been in, let's say, a boarding school system where there is a lot of bullying which happens, and a lot of harsh disciplining, which back in the day was okay. Today there are laws, protecting children from being harshly disciplined at school. I just want to add a little bit, because this is my favorite subject. I could just go on. So, while we talk about harsh disciplining, it's not just physical punishment, but emotional hurts which are delivered to us sometimes by people whom we've put on a pedestal, because, this person is my teacher, or even my prefect, or my principal, and how this person then has the capacity to hurt me and make me feel really small. So all of that gets addressed actually in the program. And when we close, we actually say that, okay, today in 3 days, we've made the journey from 0 to 26. Today, I'm an adult. I'm not carrying any of the past baggage. And if more baggage comes up, I have the tools to deal with it. So now, as a fully functioning adult, how can I take care of myself? How do I protect myself from people who are infringing on my boundaries? People who just, take away my time and I can't say no to them, right? How do I protect myself? How do I empower myself? A lot of people, for instance, Richa, I was closely associated with a program that helped women to deal with their finances, right? In a lot of homes, you'll find the man does it and the woman doesn't know
Yeah.
how much are we saving, how much are we investing, because that part of them, they didn't let it develop. So
I'm so
so
bad with my finances. My father is still doing that. He says, "Beta, seek lo." I'm like, "You're doing it, share market, this, that, mutual funds, PPF." So now I'm learning. I'm now documenting and learning. So yeah, but at this
wonderful.
age of 40 plus, I should be ashamed.
No,
Sorry.
there's nothing to be ashamed of. So it's like, yeah, or like people learn at the age of. I read about a woman, I think in Haryana, who learned to drive at the age of 80 and how empowered she feels, right? Or we talk about self defense or learning a new language when work takes us to another country. So empowering ourselves really is important.
I wanted to ask about the format of the workshop. You said, we are writing letters and we are talking, and there's a lot of, it's a group session, right? So, do
Yes,
you do
absolutely.
one on one? But so, when you discuss my problems with me, is it with everybody or is one on one with you? Or everybody gets to learn? Because I think in that group, everybody problems might just resonate with someone else. So, just a clarification.
Certainly. So when we start the program, everybody signs a sort of a confidentiality contract, because we know that in the course of these 3 days, some
Yeah.
very painful stuff is going to come up, right? And so that everybody feels respected, everybody feels safe. Um, it's been my experience that people have very openly come out and they've actually found it such a relief to be able to share with a group of people that understands them, that won't judge them, so yes, it's these are small groups ranging from 5 to 10 people, but I create a space of trust, which is very, very important. And
Wow.
yes, I do get requests saying there are parts of our life that we would like to talk to you one on one, and I schedule that time. Either
Wow.
during the workshop we step outside, or in the week that follows the workshop, I'm happy to work with people and say yes. And yes, I have worked with some pretty extreme, difficult cases of abuse, and these people are now making very powerful journeys in healing from that and in going forward.
Wow. So, Meena, also like you do workshop, but do you also do one-on-one consultations for, say, someone like who's not comfortable coming in a bigger forum? So, how
Absolutely.
are those planned? Like, how many sessions? Like, can you tell us a little bit more?
Yeah, so that is my regular therapy, roster. So people come to me for therapy sessions, and definitely in the therapy session, we are going to look at the person's entire life. So from childhood onwards, and what's notable, Richa, is to say how young uh, some of my clients are. Back in the day, nobody thought therapy was so important. It's becoming more and more. Normalized and destigmatized. So therapy sessions are an hour long, and depending upon the magnitude of the discomfort that the person is facing with their current problem, like we call it presenting problem in psychology. So what is my presenting problem? Is it fear of meeting people? Is it my marriage? Is it with my work? Is it that I'm disinterested? What is really going on? I also want to say something. There are so many people that we say they are functional. For instance, a person could be holding a job, a responsible job, fulfilling on all of those functions required, raising children, and doing everything while going through a disorder like this, which may not even merit a psychiatric diagnosis like anxiety, depression, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder. Like, and even then, therapy benefits them. So it could be, I mean, it could take from 4 sessions to, I mean, maybe 6 months or a year of therapy. But really, a person gets handheld going through all these stages and carving out a new life for themselves because their patterns are changing. They find out why are these things happening to me? How come I've turned out this way? And now can I, like you said, course correct? That's the right word.
But like as you just mentioned, someone who's leading a perfectly normal life, he also
Hmm.
might be having some traumas which might not be rampant or visible. They might be latent, which might be creating a lot of issues in terms of relationships, or as you said, they get into addictions. So how
Yes.
does one watch out for any kind of signals or signs?
It's very good. You should, you brought up addictions. I think it's there in my introduction, and I talk about it. I ran a de-addiction and rehabilitation center in the city of Gurgaon, and 90% of the people who came to me were high functioning, adults, like people from the corporate world, from IT, from education, from law. And these are people with very responsible jobs because, there is such a pressure to perform. There is such a pressure to be normal that we don't just allow ourselves to fall apart, right? Nobody does that, and which is why, the symptoms could be as subtle as the symptom could be something like I said, leaning on a substance. The symptom could be something like, in fact, even a health issue. Like the prominent physiological symptoms of someone having anxiety or depression could be like a gastric disorder, constant acidity, frequent headaches, or changes in blood pressure,
Okay.
frequent coughs and colds, aches and pains that are not related to any injury, but, like a nagging backache or a knee ache. These are actually, we say, psychosomatic symptoms. And
Yeah.
sometimes people say, yes, my body is going through all this. Why? Because my mind was going through it and I didn't address it. And now it's actually come down to the body, and my body is telling me, do something about it. And my doctors are saying, okay, you've taken all the meds, we've done all the tests, there's nothing diagnosably wrong with you, and yet the symptoms are still there. So so I hope that answers your question. So symptoms could range from physiological, it could, things like insomnia or hypersomnia, like person feels sleepy all the time, sometimes is a sign that, really they're finding it very difficult to cope in this world. So they go to sleep and they spend long hours sleeping. Emotional eating is a symptom. And I think we
Oh.
already talked about, taking addictive substances, getting into one relationship after other. And a person will tell me, all the people I date are like this. Everybody turns abusive after a while. So, and then finally, I'm trying to figure out, is it something I say or do that makes it this way?
Yeah, maybe it's a trigger, and it's every action has a reaction, so we never know. So I think it's all about being one with yourself, with your mind, with your own persona. If you think you're not feeling right, I think if something is not right in your environment which you feel is you've been trying, I think it's
Yes,
time to take stock and see, because you'll be the best judge. No one can actually pinpoint towards
absolutely.
what is not right. But yeah, a lot of times people, the problem with us is that we are very ignorant. We want to put everything under the carpet. So guys, girls, family members, please wake up. If you think anything which is not really in line with the properly fulfilled existence, and you think something amiss, we are human beings, we have our sixth sense and our gut feeling. So please, please, please take stock and reach out. And as Meena said, there's nothing wrong in taking help, in going to alternative therapies and alternative mediums, and reaching out to the right person who can help you overcome your deficiencies, or something which you are lacking. So Meena, my next question
Absolutely,
is,
Richa. I just want to add one small thing because you mentioned sometimes, a lot of times a person, you'll find that your friend or your spouse or your sibling is going through something. And it's easier for you to pick up the phone and talk to a therapist or a counselor because they may find it very difficult.
we
So a
we
lot of times
don't
I
teach
get
it.
calls from family
Yeah.
members. Yeah.
Yeah.
Please, you had a
So
question.
yeah, so so I wanted to ask you, कि, well, aren't we getting into a sort of a blame game with the world? Like as you said, there are a lot of issues which may have transpired in the past, which might trigger this kind of mindset.
Mhm. You
So
see, in fact, in the ultimate analysis, we are actually, what we are doing is to finally give the blame game an end. Because the blame game comes up, everybody remembers these little solitary incidents, like that day when this happened, and so and so said this to me. I was so badly, I was so distressed, or I was so ashamed. So it's the blame game is already going on. But instead, when you give it an outlet in a therapeutic environment, saying this is not a blame game. This person said this, but there was something about me that responded to it in this way. So, how can I change myself? So, while the trigger may have come from the outside world, what is it about me that makes me really sensitive to stuff like this? So, in fact, one of the prominent writers, John Bradshaw, talks about it. He has called this original pain. So today, if I'm watching a movie and some scene makes me cry, there is some original pain, some very old pain of mine which has got triggered. And so in this workshop, what we do is to deal with the original pain. Because right now there's no pain, and I can tell myself, oh, I have a perfect life, my kids are doing well, my husband and I are fine, and our careers are good. So how come, why, like at a small thing, how come I'm crumbling like this? That's because it's all from the past, and this is an opportunity to heal that. And the blame game actually finally ends because we don't need it to justify our present behaviors.
wow, there's so much of insights into everything. Thanks for just putting it so simpler in simpler terms for us. So Meena, one more thing I wanted to ask you, like after suppose somebody finishes your workshop and he partakes in it, what kind of changes can one see? I know everybody's experience will be different, but then how does
Yes.
it help a participant?
So the first thing is that in just one word, if I have to say it, people become self-aware. We get to know ourselves better. Okay. That's, I think, the most important thing. This whole mystery around who is the real me, and what parts make up the real me. That mystery gets solved, and from there, whatever benefits we are experiencing is because of that. So we deal with situations better, our relationships become better, our work becomes better. We are able to finally, do things that we always wanted to do. We the three emotions, the prominent emotions from which all other emotions arise, they're sadness, fear, and anger. So we get access to understanding where these things are coming from, and how we can actually express these emotions in a healthy way, okay, without wrecking our relationships and our work life. That happens. In fact, I do a whole section on dealing with difficult emotions with various techniques like EFT tapping, if you've heard of that, and even neuro linguistic programming. NLP has ways of pain relief through guided visualizations and simulations. So we work on that. My favorite part is that inside each one of us is a little wonder child, a child that's full of wonder, creativity, spontaneity. And a lot of that has got buried under layers and layers and layers of how the world has conditioned us. And so we behave like these people who are functioning at 2% or 10% of our capacity. A lot of people tell me our creativity's got unleashed. I had a 45-year-old mom who enrolled for an LLB program. So, the results are just there. It's like getting to know yourself better, understanding what you really want from life, setting those goals, and going after them. All of that happens.
So we have a lovely comment. There are a lot of welcomes for you. One of our viewer has, really commented on the topic. I think this is something which people will take notice. Now that you've spoken about NLP, I think that will be our next topic of discussion because it's something which I have no clue about, and I think a lot of people might not be knowing as well. So, Meena, quickly before we wrap up, I wanted to ask you, how is this field as a career option? I think it takes a lot of, because you take on so much misery, you take on so much negativity because you're cleansing, you're also helping people. I'm sure it's not easy, it's sapping as well. So how is you know what you're doing as a career option for individuals who want to make a difference and maybe study and get into this line?
The career opportunity is huge, Richa, because today the gap between the number of people who are going through mental and emotional struggles and problems and the people who are equipped, qualified, and experienced enough to deal with them is huge. I think every forum is talking about it, including major forums like WHO who address problems. 10th of September was World Suicide Prevention Day, and it's alarming. Last year the global suicide statistics stood at 8 lakh people in the world committed suicide, of which close to 2 lakh were from India.
My
So
god.
it's about saving lives and it's about improving lives. So the potential is huge as a career option. Like I said, the basic is to get a degree in counseling or clinical psychology or counseling psychology, and of course you add to your repertoire along the way with say NLP or transactional analysis or hypnotherapy, which goes into the subconscious mind. And of course I think you learn and you work on yourself, you work on others. So it's a beautiful journey. And I want to really say, like the Buddha said so many years, thousands of years back, that life is full of suffering, and life is still full of suffering, right? It's just about identifying and being honest with ourselves and saying, yes, I have suffering in my life. I don't want to cover it over, with prescription medication or with alcohol or with binge watching, because these are all escapes. What is my true access to solving my pain, which is so deep inside that only someone who is equipped to understand it, deal with it, can do it. And believe me, it's been an extremely satisfying journey for me. As I shared in the start, I started out in the corporate world, and this is what I do now. And the other thing is, there's really no retirement age for it, right? You can
Yeah.
always, yeah. I write a blog in the Times of India. It's called In Spirit, and
Oh
some of the
wow.
work that I do is captured in the blogs that I write. Some of them pretty controversial, but that's there. So once you're in this line, you're working with groups, you're working with individuals, and then you have your own spaces of expression through blogs, books. I think psychotherapists are the most published people in the world, after
Wow.
fiction, maybe. Yes. So the possibilities are endless.
Oh wow! I mean, that's so beautiful. So we would love to have few of our blogs on our page. So please do tell us if we can
Sure.
post few, or maybe you can post for us. So viewers, thank you so much. There's another question, that how can we study these various techniques? Is there a institute, like when you go on Google, there are a lot of things. So one viewer has asked, so any particular institute or organization you will refer for studying?
Studying psychology or the inner child healing?
No, the various hypnotherapies and
Oh, there are
alternative.
many schools. There are many accredited schools today that offer courses in hypnotherapy. The only thing I would say is to pick a school. I don't want to take any names, but to pick a school which is, accredited, which gives you an opportunity to practice. Also, when you are practicing, to get supervision, and so sessions can be recorded, and you can see, exactly how you're doing, because the fundamental thing about therapy is when somebody asks you a question, what are you picking up, from what they're saying and what they're not saying, and that only experience, can help you with. So
Wow.
the person's body language, because now, like I said, we're all doing Zoom sessions, and the way a person's looking at you, just that, like, one word you say and one little movement or one little a shadow of an expression or a discomfort that comes on a person's face, And maybe they cover it up quickly with words, but the closer you get to understanding who you're with and completely in sync with, right? So it needs a lot of compassion, empathy, and being present to what the other person is saying.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Meena. I think it was a very, very, very enriching session. Thank you so much for taking out time and being a part of our show. Viewers, if you have any questions, specifics for Meena, please reach out to her. She'll also be present on the page. Please start posting. Meena, we'll request you to please start sharing bit by bit. Maybe we can start with your blogs and we'll all reach out to you. And we look forward to your courses. We'll also post the details for the upcoming courses so that we can help ourselves, live better and, get through our traumas, if at all. Thank you so much, Meena, for being here this evening. Thank you so much. Thank you, our
Thank you,
viewers, for the
Richa.
kind words. And let's keep in touch. We want a lifelong partnership here. So thank you so much. And from Sabha and me at Family Affair, I want to thank everyone who's been watching and encouraging all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Richa. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Bye bye.
Bye.